again then. Thanks.
So in this, please turn to the first page, and we'll chant this prayer on this page 3 times.
Organ yogi num jansam, pemage sardom pola, yatsen chogi ngodrubne, pemajong ne jesurak, ordu kandro mampogor, ketki jesudak druki, Jinjilo Chir Sheksu So Guru Pema Siddhi Hom.
Repeat this again.
Organ Yogi Num Jansam Pema Ge Sardom Bola Yatsen Chogi Ngodrubne Pema Jone Jesudra Ordu Kandro Mangpogor Ketki Jesuda Druki Jinjilo Chir Sheksu So Guru Pema Siddhi Om Organ Yogi Nupchan Sam Pemage Sardom Pola Yatsen Chogi Ngodrubne Pemajone Jesudra Ordu Kandro Mangpogor Ketki Jesuda Druki Jinjilo Chir Sheksu So Guru Pema Siddhi Om. All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here today. So this is the last class of this series on Tonglen, also known as the practice of sending and receiving, or the practice of exchanging self and others. In this practice, we take on the sufferings of others and we send them our happiness. So far in the series, we've talked about why this practice is so helpful and needed at this time, why sentient beings suffer, and how karma, or the law of cause and effect, manifests as the 6 realms of cyclic existence in which beings are born again and again into great suffering. In the practice of Tonglen, we visualize taking on those sufferings of all sentient beings and sending them our happiness. And when we do this, it diminishes our self-cherishing and it deepens our compassion and loving kindness. It also helps to develop bodhicitta, which is the awakened mind that is the union of wisdom and compassion. Bodhicitta is the aspiration to attain enlightenment for the sake of all beings. There are 2 kinds of bodhicitta: relative bodhicitta and absolute bodhicitta. Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche describes relative bodhicitta as how we start to learn to love each other and ourselves, while the basic principle of ultimate or absolute bodhicitta is to rest in the fundamental state of consciousness before it is ever divided into I and other. And that is the realization of emptiness that is attained by bodhisattvas on the higher levels, or bhumis. And until we get there, the emphasis of our practice should be on the relative bodhicitta, learning how to love each other and ourselves. That altruistic mind and developing that profound wish to benefit others and to be free of all selfish ambitions. Sometimes people are really full of themselves and they think that this stuff about loving each other is just kindergarten stuff. And they just want to skip right ahead to like the Dzogchen teachings and the really fancy kinds of meditation. And, they want to just go straight to what they perceive as being the top of the chain. But no matter what kind of practice you do, you will never, ever realize absolute bodhicitta if you don't first develop the love and compassion of relative bodhicitta. When we practice relative bodhicitta correctly, we get a little taste of that absolute bodhicitta. We practice correctly by starting with a bodhicitta motivation, with the aspiration that what we're doing will bring benefit to all beings. And then throughout our practice, we remember the dreamlike nature of reality, that everything is empty of essence and a projection of our own mind. And at the end, we dedicate the merit of our activity to all beings. And when we practice like that, absolute bodhicitta is naturally present, mixed in with it. Mixed in with our relative bodhicitta practice because of that understanding of emptiness. We're playing around and starting to understand that concept of emptiness when we're practicing relative bodhicitta. We're dipping our toe in the water and playing with it. And then eventually, if we keep practicing, we will fully realize absolute bodhicitta. So relative bodhicitta itself has two stages: the aspiration to benefit others and the putting of that aspiration into action. The difference between the two is like the difference between wanting to go somewhere and then actually putting on your shoes and getting in the car and going. So we can put relative bodhicitta into action through the meditation practice of Tonglen, exchanging self and others, and the post-meditation practice of using unfavorable circumstances on the path, which we started discussing last week, and that's what we'll be wrapping up today. So as aspiring bodhisattvas, we should try to practice bodhicitta 24/7. It's not enough to just practice loving each other just 10 minutes a day or an hour a day. Like, and the rest of the time, we're just like, ugh, ew. That's not enough. So we should try to make use of every circumstance, every experience, every moment of our lives to practice bodhicitta. And to do that, we need to know how to make use of the adverse circumstances that we're bound to face and how to use those as fuel for spiritual practice. So adverse circumstances are considered under 4 headings. 4 things you do not want to happen, which we discussed last class. 2 things that are difficult to bear. Deprivation and prosperity is the 3rd. And the 4th is hatred and desire. So the first ones of these 2 things that are difficult to bear is being wronged in return for kindness. It says in the 37 verses of the practice of a bodhisattva, on the practice of a bodhisattva, even if one I've lovingly cared for like my own child regards me as an enemy, to love him even more as a mother loves a sick child is the practice of a bodhisattva. So sometimes when we're kind to others, they don't appreciate it and they act ungratefully. You might go so far as to risk your life for someone, and they could respond with resentment or hatred or even try to harm you. But we shouldn't let this bother us. A true bodhisattva spontaneously responds to the needs of beings out of their natural compassion, without any expectation of reward or gratitude. Even if they respond to your kindness with violence, you should just love them more. We should be like a loving mother nursing her baby. So sometimes when you're nursing your baby, sometimes they bite you and they make you bleed. But a loving mother will try her best not to get angry Does in the text she won't get angry, but this was written by a man. So I'm just going to say she's try her best not to get angry. And she won't love her baby any less. You know, no matter what her baby does, she remains full of love for him and continues to care for her baby as best as she can. So having found the Dharma, we have the rare and precious opportunity to find our way out of delusion. But most beings don't have the same good fortune that we do. And no matter how badly they behave, we should remember that those who try to hurt us are simply the victims of their own emotions. They need our help and compassion. We should think, wouldn't it be great if they could be free of those emotions? There's a saying from, I think, Zimbabwe that my husband and I have found really helpful as parents when our kid's acting out. We say to him, you have no sense right now. Someday you'll have sense. That helps us to remember that, like, he's not trying to act crazy. You know, he's having a hard time. He's at the whim of his emotions, and, you know, he's having some big feelings right now, and he needs our help. So we should remember that those who hurt you are a rare and precious treasure. We should hold them in high esteem and use the opportunity to remove our faults and develop our good qualities. And if someone who once harmed you later changes their ways and sets out on the path and, you know, achieves liberation, as a bodhisattva, you would rejoice wholeheartedly. You'd be so happy for them. If you can't yet feel love and compassion for those who treat you badly, then that just means you still have some work to do and you need to keep practicing. The second of the things that are difficult to bear is when we receive humiliation in return for our kindness. It says, even if my peers or my inferiors out of pride do all they can to debase me, to respectfully consider them like my teachers on the crown of my head is the practice of a bodhisattva. So someone who you treat politely, with kindness and consideration, might respond to you with arrogance and contempt, criticizing you or trying to humiliate you in various ways. When this happens, don't be upset or angry or feel like you're being treated badly. Instead, regard them as a kind teacher, showing you the path to liberation, and pray that you might benefit them. We shouldn't entertain thoughts of revenge for even a moment. We're not in the revenge business. When you experience respect, mockery, and insults, especially when it comes from someone who you perceive as being your inferior, someone who has less education than you or less skill than you, or, less, they're not as strong as you. Especially when someone we consider to be lower than us insults us. Especially then, we should respond with humility and patience. And this counters our ingrained tendency to be only interested in our own happiness. So the Buddha advises us to abandon our pride and take the most humble position and regard everyone as being above us, as though we were carrying all beings on our head. It said, carrying all beings above one's head is the torch and banner of the bodhisattvas. Another way that we can take the most humble position is when we're doing our visualization practices, when we are praying and we're visualizing the Buddhas in front of us. We can give our enemies and our tormentors, we can give them the best seat. So we can imagine that they've got a cushion sitting out with a better view. We're in the nosebleed section, and they've got the nice front row seats to see the Buddha, you know? And so that's another way that we can take the low seat, the humble position. So I did this once. I one time had a boss that I tried very hard to help him with his business, and it seemed like he always repaid me with like condescension and distrust, and he would publicly try to make me the scapegoat of stuff I didn't, for stuff that I wasn't involved in, or trying to make me seem stupid in front of people, and just was really, we had a very difficult relationship. Brought me to tears many times, and I did this. I did this practice for a few weeks of just, when I did my daily practice, I offered him the best seat. And as far as I can tell, I didn't do anything else to change my behavior and how I interacted with him. But after a few weeks, his demeanor changed. Like our relationship just changed. It pacified. It became peaceful and pleasant. And he would come to just tell me good news or just chat with me. And he trusted me. And I started being someone that he would turn to, and he's, oh, I'm worried about this. Like, what do you think? I started being someone that he trusted. And so our relationship just changed into a very peaceful coexistence. And all I did was just offer him the better seat during my practice. And just that it's like magic. It was literally like magic. It was like, how does this work so well? There was a great teacher named Dromtompa Gyalwai Zhongnai who would circumambulate even a dog on the side of the road in recognition of the Buddha nature that is inherent with all beings. So we think sometimes, how can I put all beings above my head? But all beings have the Buddha nature within them. And we can remember that. And when you're going around the stupa and then everyone's worried, oh, I should get out of the way so you can do your prostrations or do your circumambulations. You tell them, don't worry about it. You've got the Buddha nature. I can walk around you too. This teacher, I think this was the same one I read about previously in the same book, he would go out of his way when he's circumambulating the stupa. If there's an animal or something, he'd go out of his way, go circumambulate it too, as even around the stupa, because the animal has the Buddha nature too. So the next one, the next category is deprivation and prosperity. So how do we use deprivation on the path? It says in the 37 verses, even when utterly destitute and constantly maligned by others, afflicted by terrible illness and prey to evil forces, to still draw upon myself the suffering and wrongdoing of all beings, and not to lose heart is the practice of a bodhisattva. So when you are suffering from not having enough food or clothing or shelter or affection, or you're sick or you're being treated poorly, you should sincerely wish to take all of the sufferings of all beings upon yourself and send them whatever happiness you have. And try to help others by giving them what they truly need. Jetsuma's always taught me that when, if you're going through a period where suddenly it's like you don't have enough, money's dried up, you don't have enough money for rent or food or whatever, it just feels you suddenly find yourself facing deprivation. To see that as a mirror of your own habits of mind, and that means that you have sowed the seeds of miserliness in the past, and so you want to turn that habit around. This is letting you know that you have this habit. And so oh no, I've been miserly. I got to change that. I got to turn that around. and just go be generous. Whatever you have, like go look through your closet and see what clothes you can donate. Go look in your food, see if you can make sandwiches for someone. Is there something you can donate to a food pantry? Anything. Like even if we feel like we have nothing, there's always something we can give. Even if it's just something like, if you had absolutely nothing, you could still maybe give someone a smile or a kind word or helpful advice. We always have something we can give if we are in that mind state of generosity. So so whenever we face deprivation, we should immediately try to do the opposite and be generous to others. And this does have because cause and effect is infallible. So when you practice generosity, that will come back to you too. But that's not why we practice it. We don't practice generosity so that we just get rich then, oh no, I don't have enough money. Well, I should give some things away so that money will come back to me. You're not doing it for that reason. But that does happen too. That's just a side effect. Might happen now, might happen later, but you can trust that cause and effect will turn that around. But if you give in hope of a reward, it's a very small effect compared to the vastness of if you give without any expectation of reward. So when we face suffering, we can also reflect on the positive qualities of suffering. Suffering can motivate us to practice and to break free from samsara. And sadness is a very effective antidote to arrogance. Chogyam Trungpa always encouraged people to have a heart of sadness. He said, like flute music. Like it's beautiful, but it's sad. There's like an appreciation for the beauty, but there's also a sadness. Patrul Rinpoche says, I don't like happiness. I like suffering. If I am happy, the 5 poisons increase. If I suffer, my past bad karma is exhausted. I don't value high positions. I like low ones. If I am important, my pride and jealousy increase. If I am lowly, I relax and my spiritual practice grows. The lowest place is the seat of the saints of the past. And the 11th century Kadampa master Karakumchong said, difficulties are our spiritual teachers. Obstacles are a spur to Dharma practice. Suffering is a broom to sweep away our evil deeds. Do not regard them with dislike. The difficult circumstances reveal whether our practice is genuine or superficial. When we encounter harmful forces, we should meet them with compassion and not anger. For instance, the best way to stop negative spirits from harming you or others is not to fight them with anger, but to satisfy them by repeatedly making visualized offerings of your own body, like the meditation that we did a meditation in the last class where we did this. And over time, your mind will get used to this attitude of altruistic love and compassion, and it will naturally be reflected in your words and actions. Bodhisattvas who have really accomplished the bodhicitta and no longer have any concern for their own welfare, never have any thought for their own welfare, they would happily give their life and body for others in reality, not just in their meditation. We're not there yet, so we should just keep doing it mentally. But when you have enough love for others, you can do that too. Once there were, there's this type of being called a rakshasa, which is an ogre-like being that lives on flesh and blood. And once 5 rakshasas went to a new country and they set out on a killing rampage. They attacked the sheep and other animals and trying to kill everything in sight with their weapons and sharp claws and teeth. But mysteriously, they couldn't kill a single animal. They couldn't even wound anyone. It was like they were made of rock. They were just completely invulnerable. So these rakshasas, they asked some shepherds, why is it that we can't kill any of your sheep? And the shepherds told them that the kingdom was ruled by a monarch called Strength of Love. He spent all of his time in the highest tower of his palace in deep meditation on compassion and love. And the strength of his love was so great that there were no famines or illnesses or plagues, and no living being in his kingdom could be killed. So the 5 Rakshasas went to see the king, and they told him that in order to survive, they needed to eat flesh and blood, but they couldn't find any in his kingdom. And the king said, "I'd like to help you, but I can't let you harm anyone. Since you need flesh and blood to sustain your own lives, I will give it to you myself." And he pierced his body with a spear and gave them his own flesh and blood to eat. And as soon as they tasted the blood of this Bodhisattva king, they suddenly experienced a deep meditative state of love. And they vowed to never harm anyone again from that moment onward. So that's the power and strength of love. So then, how do we use the opposite? How do we use prosperity on the path? It says, "Though I may be famous and revered by many, and as rich as the God of wealth himself, to see that the wealth and glory of the world are without essence and to be free of arrogance is the practice of a bodhisattva." Dogo Kensei Rinpoche says, "A bodhisattva sees that wealth, beauty, influence, prosperity, family lineage, in fact, all the ordinary concerns of this life, are as fleeting as a flash of lightning, as ephemeral as a dewdrop, as hollow as a bubble, as evanescent as the skin of a snake. He is never conceited or proud, no matter what worldly achievements and privileges may come to him." So we should remember that no matter how rich we get, we never get to keep any of it. Eventually, we will lose our wealth to whether it's to thieves or people in power or to death. At the end of our life, we cannot bring anything with us. You might plan on leaving everything to your kids, but there's no guarantee that it's going to do them any real good. And they'll probably just use it selfishly, accumulating negative actions that will further entrench them in samsara and cause them more suffering. So Jetsun Milarepa always taught his lay disciples that the best way for them to accomplish the Dharma was to be generous. It's to be generous to those in need. That's the best way. And generosity is it's the first of the 6 perfections, and it's the easiest to practice. It's the one that is the easiest to start with. It's a lot easier than being patient when people are being mad at you and harming you. It's really hard. If we have an altruistic mind, even a small act of generosity, even just giving a few bucks, just something small, can accumulate great merit. So remember, it's about the vastness of our intention, not just the appearance of the action. So if you have wealth and power, don't squander it accumulating useless junk. Make it meaningful by using it for the sake of the Dharma and to benefit all beings. Whether you're rich or poor, strive to be generous. Practicing miserliness sows the seeds of future deprivation. We should make a habit of thinking, may the needs of all beings, even the smallest insect, be fulfilled. And then, with whatever wealth and possessions we have, we should try to make that happen. We should try to use them in the best way possible to help others. So whenever you can, try to fulfill the needs of others, providing them with food, clothing, shelter, anything they need. And Jetsama has given us such a wonderful opportunity to do this with Buddhist Relief. We have the temple's humanitarian arm. It's called Buddhist Relief, and we feed people. And Buddhist Relief works in partnership with a number of nonprofits and procures and distributes like over 16,000 pounds of food each month, each of our nonprofit partners. And then that goes to people in need. And Buddhist Relief's niche is getting people what they can't get elsewhere. So it's whatever needs that they can't get met. That's where Buddhist Relief comes in and tries to fill that gap and make sure that every need has been met. So this is such a wonderful opportunity for us to take part in that, to give to Buddhist Relief, to volunteer with Buddhist Relief, and to do that is real Dharma practice. You know, sometimes we think Dharma practice is just the part where we sit on the cushion and we pray, and then we think that we don't have to do anything else when we get up off the cushion. But we should always be working for the benefit of other beings and thinking, you know, we think all day long about, oh, I don't have enough, you know, I need a new pair of jeans. I'd like to try that new type of coffee. I really need a vacation. You know, what happiness could I buy for myself? I want to go to Starbucks and get a coffee, you know, something like we just always are thinking about ourselves and what we need. And instead we need to place that emphasis on other beings and just be really just seeing all the time, what do they need? What can I do for them? And putting our emphasis there instead. And at the same time that we are trying to fulfill the needs of others with their physical needs, we should also make the wish to be able to fulfill their ultimate needs by giving them the sublime gift of the Dharma. So then, this is what's so amazing about Jetsama creating Buddhist Relief is not only does this Buddhist Relief meet the needs of beings, but she also is fulfilling our ultimate needs by giving us the sublime gift of a way to practice generosity. So it's like a 2-for-1 thing she's done there, where she's giving us both the Dharma practice and the actual physical benefit to other beings. So it's really wonderful. So the next one is how to use objects of hatred on the path. It says, if one does not conquer one's own hatred, the more one fights outer enemies, the more they will increase. Therefore, with the armies of loving kindness and compassion, to tame one's own mind is the practice of a bodhisattva. So when we have all these outer adversaries, these enemies, these people that make our life difficult, and we try to overcome them with hatred or fighting them, and no matter how many of them overcome, no matter how many enemies we overcome, there will always be more that take their place. It's like a zombie movie. No matter how many zombies you cut down, there will be more, right? They just keep pouring in. And that's how it is when we try to combat our enemies. More spring up. As long as we have that concept of an enemy, there will always be someone to fill that role. Even if you could conquer all of the beings in the entire universe, your anger would just grow stronger. But if you overcome the hatred within your own mind, you'll find that there's no longer even the idea of a single enemy outside yourself. Our true enemy is hatred, and the way to conquer hatred is to meditate on patience and love. Once love and compassion take root in our beings, there's no way for us to have outer adversaries. As the 100 Verses says, if you kill out of anger, your enemies will be never ending. If you kill anger, that will kill your enemies once and for all. In one of his past rebirths, the Buddha was a giant ocean turtle. And one day, as he was swimming far out in the ocean, he saw a merchant ship that had wrecked and was sinking, and the merchants were drowning. So he went and rescued them and carried them the long way to shore on his back. And afterwards, he was so exhausted that he fell asleep on the beach. While he slept, 80,000 flies began to eat their way into his body. The turtle woke up in terrible pain and realized what had happened. And he saw there was no way that he could get rid of all of the flies. If he dove into the sea, they would all die. So being a bodhisattva, he stayed where he was and he allowed the flies to eat away his body. And with a heart filled with love, he prayed, "Whenever I attain enlightenment, may I in turn consume all these insects' negative emotions and actions and their belief in true existence and thus lead them to Buddhahood." And as a result of this prayer, those flies were reborn as the assembly of 80,000 fortunate celestial beings who were present when the Buddha first turned the wheel of Dharma. If instead the turtle had killed those insects in anger by plunging to the sea, he would have suffered endlessly. Because the result of killing just a single being out of anger is to be reborn in the hell realms for the equivalent of 500 human lives. So you can imagine just that one moment he could have created an eternity of suffering for himself. But instead, he brought all of these beings, to enlightenment. So the Buddha advises us to never get angry, even if someone deliberately, maliciously harms you. You should be grateful to them for helping you to purify your past negative actions, to increase your determination to be free of samsara, and to develop love and compassion. Just let them spur you onwards. Right now, we can see there's so much famine and conflict and wars in the world. And it seems like it's just increasing and increasing and increasing every day. And this is because people allow their emotions to run wild and they act under the power of their negative emotions. If the hatred, pride, jealousy, desire, and stupidity in the world were to decrease, conflicts, epidemics, and even natural disasters would decrease as well. The same way that smoke disappears when a fire is extinguished. So if these emotions are the root of our suffering, so if we extinguish them, then that smoke of suffering dissipates. And then people would naturally turn their minds towards the Dharma. Our oldest enemies are attachment, aversion, and ignorance. All of our suffering stems from having those in our mind stream. Once we overcome them, there are no other enemies. Everyone would be your friend. You would just have love and compassion for everyone. It'd be like the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama never meets anyone he's not like best friends with, right? Like he's just so happy and loving all of the time. Everyone, he's just, touching their arms, just so affectionate, loves everyone. So it's important to understand this because it's our habit to hand the wheel to our emotions and just let them go wild. And when our minds are overtaken by anger, we act irrationally without regard for consequences. We forget all about karma. We might even forget that we're talking to someone we love, we might even forget that, this is a person I love right here, and my kid or my spouse or my friend, and yet in anger, you say the most horrible things to them. And you forget all about that because the anger just clouds your mind. One moment of anger can destroy a good friendship of 20 or 30 years. It only takes one moment of anger to end a life or to start World War III. When anger is allowed to take over the mind and gather its full force, it can be incredibly detrimental, incredibly destructive. But if you examine anger, you'll see that it's nothing but a thought. If that angry thought disappears, it won't lead to an angry, negative reaction that has negative karmic results. Dogo Kensei Rinpoche says, trample on anger with realization, and it dissolves like a cloud in the sky. And as it dissolves, the notion of enemy will vanish with it. So anger and these other emotions will keep coming up in our mind because it's our habit to indulge them. It's our habit to indulge them, so we keep perpetuating them. But they can all be neutralized by applying the right antidotes with pure motivation. So like when we have anger, applying the antidote of patience. When we're feeling greedy, applying the antidote of generosity. So when we apply these antidotes with pure motivation, we can neutralize these negative emotions. It is possible to neutralize all of them because they are empty in essence. As Geshe Patoa said, if you see anyone as an enemy and think of others in terms of close and distant, you will not attain Buddhahood. So generate love and compassion impartially for all sentient beings, as infinite in number as space is vast. All right, and then the last one is how to use objects of desire on the path. It says, sense pleasures and desirable things are like salt water. The more one tastes them, the more one's thirst increases. To abandon promptly all objects that arouse attachment is the practice of a bodhisattva. So all of the wealth, comfort, beauty, and power that we enjoy in our lives is the result of our past good deeds. And whether you have a little or a lot, it is the characteristic of ordinary people to never feel satisfied with what you have. You might have more wealth than you need, beautiful surroundings, close relationships with your friends and family, and it's not enough. Even if you won the lottery, it probably wouldn't be enough. When craving becomes so ingrained in your mind, trying to satisfy your desires is like drinking salt water. And the more you drink, the thirstier you get. During the time of Buddha Vipashin, who was one of the Buddhas before Buddha Shakyamuni, there was a small boy who met the Buddha while he was begging for alms. And he instantly felt great faith in the Buddha and wanted to make an offering to him, but he only had a handful of peas in his pocket. So he tossed them towards the Buddha. 4 peas fell in the Buddha's begging bowl. 2 peas fell at the level of the Buddha's heart, and 1 pea got stuck to his robe. As a result of this, the boy was born as King Mandatri, who had power over the 4 continents. He gradually ascended the different levels of the god realms, eventually reaching the celestial heaven of the 33, where he shared the throne with Indra, the god of the gods, who had an incredibly long lifespan. King Mandatri enjoyed the fruits of the wish-fulfilling tree. He drank the nectar of the ambrosial lakes. He could radiate light across the entire universe. And he could have continued to enjoy this exquisite happiness, but it wasn't enough. He was dissatisfied. He decided that he didn't want to just share a throne with Indra. He wanted to be the greatest, most powerful being in the world. in the universe, the greatest, most powerful being in the universe. So the thought came to him that he should kill Indra. But this thought came to him just as his merit was exhausted, the merit creating this existence in the God realm. Just as that merit was waning, this thought of killing Indra came to him, and he died terribly, falling back into the ordinary world. According to one version of this story, when the boy threw the offerings to the Buddha, at the end of his offering, he also threw 4 peas on the ground with a negative attitude, and that was that his later fall was the result of doing that, of that negative, throwing the peas on the ground. But throughout history and in the present day, we can see how people spend all of their lives feverishly trying to accumulate wealth and spending day after day after day, their whole lives on this. Still, they die without having satisfied that craving. Right now, the combined wealth of the 8 richest people on the planet is equivalent to the wealth of the poorest 3.6 billion people. These billionaires have godlike wealth. They could solve world hunger without even checking their bank balance. But they don't, because for all they have the Dharma, so they don't know to do that. If it were possible for money to buy happiness, they would be happy by now. They would definitely be happy by now. I don't think it's even possible for Elon Musk to spend all of the money that he has in his lifetime. Like, I don't think we could possibly manufacture enough stuff for him to spend all of his money in his entire life. But still, he's not happy. These billionaires who have so much, they still want more and more and more. They want more. They want to make more money. They want to buy media empires. They want to go to Mars. There's always something else. Always something else to have. True wealth is to know how to be satisfied with what you have. The great saints and hermits of the past were content with whatever they had, however they lived. They stayed in caves and other lonely places, living on the bare minimum or less. Milarepa lived on nettle soup and just wore rags. Sometimes they didn't even have rags to wear. He would just be naked in a cave eating nettle soup, but he was satisfied with that because all that mattered to him was practicing the Dharma. That was all. He had enough to keep himself alive and practice the Dharma, and so he knew that was enough for him. Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche says, when you know how to judge what is enough for you, you will no longer be tormented by wants, desires, and needs. Or the way Lao Tzu puts it in the Tao Te Ching says, he who knows that enough is enough will always have enough. The only things that we can never have enough of are learning, reflecting, and meditating on the Dharma. However much wealth or comfort you have, whether it's a little bit or a lot, be satisfied with it, but never be satisfied with the Dharma. Manjushri, the Bodhisattva of wisdom, who knows all that can be known, he travels to all of the Buddha fields in the 10 directions throughout the universe, endlessly requesting the Buddhas to turn the wheel of Dharma for the sake of all beings. And this is the example that we should follow. When it comes to Dharma, we should be insatiable. It's the only thing that will make us happy and make all beings happy. So now we're to the meditation portion of the class. So those are the ways we can meditate. That's how we can practice relative bodhicitta, when we're not on the cushion. And then Tonglen is a way that we can actually meditate to practice relative bodhicitta. But Tonglen, we don't have to sit on the cushion for either. We can do this practice anytime. We're going to be doing kind of a longer version of this practice today. We're going through these, we're using these extraordinary pith instructions from Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche that explain in detail how to make this practice of Tonglen more effective by really juicing up our bodhicitta motivation with a visualization at the beginning, where we really try to generate our compassion. But we can also do this meditation anytime, very quickly. Generally, the stages of the practice are that we start with a bodhicitta motivation, wanting to engage in this activity to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. And then while we are doing the practice, we remember the dreamlike nature of reality, that this is all empty. We are dreamlike practitioners doing a dreamlike practice to benefit dreamlike beings. And we always start our visualization with someone who we love and care about. This is usually could be someone who's been kind and loving to you, like your own mother. Doesn't have to be your mother, but that's often a good place to start. Anyone who's been kind or loving to you, or just someone who really tugs at your heartstrings and someone who you really feel compassion for. We always start with someone who is easy to love. This is like our pilot light. So that's how we spark the oven, or spark the stove with that pilot light. And then we expand it out. We expand it out to more beings. And as we expand it out to more beings, we specifically make sure to include our enemies and the people that we don't like and the people that give us trouble, and any being that we are repulsed by. Make sure that you include them, whether those are humans or spiders and snakes and scorpions and creepy crawlies, anyone you don't like. Make sure they're there, because you'll forget them. They'll conveniently leave them out. So we start with that pilot light, someone we love. We expand it out. We make sure our enemies are there too. And we just expand. And depending on how much time you have in your practice, as you do this whatever visualization you're doing of taking on the sufferings of others and sending them your happiness, if you have enough time, you can expand it all the way out to include all sentient beings. If you don't have enough time to get there, that's okay. If you just have 1 minute to practice Tonglen, that's okay too. And so just use the time you have. So, and there's many different visualizations for taking on the sufferings of others and sending them your happiness, which is what we've been exploring in this series. So, so today we'll be doing the kind of the what I'd say is like the classic Tonglen, which is like, this is a very commonly taught version of Tonglen, where we inhale. As we breathe in, we are inhaling the suffering of all beings as like a dark mass. And then we exhale all of our good qualities and happiness as like light or nectar to go to all beings. So that's a kind of classic version of this visualization. But there are other variations too. And so at the end of the practice, we'll do another variation on this Tonglen practice. And then at the end of our practice, we always dedicate the merit to all beings. So that's how you can do this practice if you are just sitting on the bus or just, in a doctor's office waiting somewhere, and you could just do this practice for a couple minutes while you wait, or you can, formally do this practice on your meditation cushion. So now let's sit in our meditation postures. If you need to get any wiggles out, you can do that now. And for our meditation posture, it's most important when we meditate is to have a straight spine and a relaxed body. So there are other tips for how to hold the body, but what's most important is having a straight spine and then just relaxed body. Just going to pull up my timer. So first, it's important to start by arousing a deeply felt warmth, sensitivity, and compassion for all beings. To do so, begin by thinking about someone who's been very kind and loving to you. This could be your mother. It could be anyone who's been kind and loving to you. Remember and reflect on their kindness. If you're thinking of your mother, you can consider how she gave you life, how she suffered the discomforts of pregnancy and the pain of childbirth, how she stayed up late at night with you, nursing you or changing your diaper, tending to you when you're sick, sparing no effort. She was ready to make any sacrifice for you and to put your welfare before her own. So just take a moment to reflect on her kindness. When you feel strong love and compassion, imagine step by step that she is undergoing the sufferings of the 6 realms. In the hell realm, she is repeatedly and brutally killed and revived. She's tossed into a boiling cauldron of molten bronze. She suffers in agony before your very eyes. Then imagine that she's been reborn as a starving spirit, just skin and bones, and has not even so much as caught sight of food for 12 years. She stretches her hands out to you, imploring you, "My child, do you have anything you can give me to eat?" Imagine her reborn as an animal, a terrified doe being chased by hunters and their dogs. In panic, she leaps off a high cliff to escape them, but falls with unbearable pain, shattering all her bones. Still alive but unable to move, she is finished off by the hunter's knives. Continue to imagine her undergoing, in quick succession, situation after situation of suffering. And if you're unfamiliar with the sufferings of all six realms, there's plenty of suffering in the human and animal realm to keep you busy. As you visualize this, an intense feeling of compassion will irresistibly well up in your mind. At that moment, turn that intense compassion to all beings, realizing that each one of them must surely have been your mother many times and deserves the same love and compassion as your mother of this present life. It's important to include all those whom you now consider enemies or troublemakers. Reflect deeply about everything that all these beings are going through as they wander endlessly in samsara's vicious cycle of suffering. Think about old, infirm people unable to care for themselves, about all those who are sick and in pain, people who are desperate and impoverished, lacking even the most basic necessities, about people suffering famine and starvation, the pangs of hunger and thirst, those who are physically blind, and about those who are spiritually destitute, starved of the nourishment of Dharma, and blind to any authentic vision of the truth. Think about all those who suffer as slaves to their own minds, constantly maddened by desire and aggression, and about those who harm one another without respite. Visualize all these sentient beings as a crowd in front of you, and let all the different forms that their suffering takes arise vividly in your mind. With an intense feeling of compassion, begin the practice of sending and receiving. Start by focusing on your most hated enemy or someone who has caused much trouble and difficulty for you. Bring that person to mind. Consider that as your breath goes out, all your happiness, all your vitality, merit, good fortune, health, and enjoyment is carried out to him on your breath in the form of cool, soothing, luminous white nectar. Make the prayer, may this truly go to my enemy and be entirely given to him. Visualize that he absorbs this white nectar, which provides him with everything that he needs. If his life was to be short, imagine that now it's prolonged. If he needs money, imagine that now he's wealthy. If he's sick, that now he's cured. If he is unhappy, now imagine him so full of joy that he feels like singing and dancing. As you breathe in, consider that you take into yourself, in the form of a dark mass, all the sickness, obscurations, and mental poisons your enemy may have had, and that he is thereby completely relieved of all his afflictions. Think that his sufferings come to you as easily as mountain mist wafted away by the wind. As you take his suffering into you, you feel great joy and bliss, mingled with the experience of emptiness. And now you expand this visualization out and do the same for the infinity of beings you are visualizing before you. Send them all of your happiness and take on their suffering. And repeat this again and again. And now we do the twist on the visualization. Now visualize that your body transforms into clothes for all those who are cold and need clothing, into food for all those who are hungry, and into shelter for all who are homeless. So that is a Tonglen practice that you can do anytime. You can do the breath version. You can do the version where you sometimes do the version where you turn into clothes and shelter. Sometimes do the version where you feed your body to harmful spirits. Sometimes do the version where you're a wish-fulfilling jewel. Like just, you can do this Tonglen practice and just sometimes just switch it up and try these different versions. And it keeps our practice fresh and it kind of develops some, helps us round out that practice. By trying all these different kinds of facets of the practice, right? We can kind of round out that jewel. So I'll just leave you with this quote from Shantideva in The Way of the Bodhisattva. May I be a guard for those who are protectorless, a guide for those who journey on the road. For those who wish to go across water, may I be a boat, a raft, a bridge. May I be an isle for those who yearn for landfall, and a lamp for those who long for light. For those who need a resting place, a bed. For all who need a servant, may I be their slave. May I be the wishing jewel, the vase of plenty, a word of power, and the supreme healing. May I be the tree of miracles, and for every being, the abundant cow. Like the earth and the pervading elements, enduring as the sky itself endures, for boundless multitudes of living beings, may I be their ground and sustenance. So that's how we should think. That's our practice. And then now, the end of our class. So I hope that you'll keep practicing Tonglen. We also have a Tonglen practice on Saturdays. We do, on a Saturday meditation class, we do stabilizing the mind and Tonglen and the light expansion prayer. So that's an opportunity that you can practice a brief Tonglen practice in a group environment anytime, or just practice on your own. So at the end, we do this Chenrezig practice, which I'm going to put in the chat for people who are online. Okay, there we go.
So we'll do the 7-line prayer just once.
Uden yogi num changsam emage sardompola yatsen chogi ngodrupne emajune jesudra Kodukandro mangpokor Yetki Jesu Druki Jinji Lokchir Shek Suso Guru Pema Siddhi Om Mahom Benza Guru Pema Siddhi Om.
Switching to English.
Your thousand arms are the thousand universal monarchs. Your thousand eyes, the thousand Buddhas of this fortunate age. You who teach each and every one of us according to our needs. Lord Avalokiteshvara, to you I pay homage.
Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum.
Om Mani Padme.
Meditation.
By this virtue, may I swiftly accomplish the state of Chenrezig, and may all sentient beings without exception be placed in that very state. By this effort, may all sentient beings be free of suffering. May their minds be filled with the nectar of virtue. In this way, may all causes resulting in suffering be extinguished, and only the light of compassion shine throughout all realms. All right, thank you, everyone. Thanks.
So thank you all again for being here, and thank you so much, Atira, for this incredible series on Tonglen. This is the final class today. If you'd like to, please consider giving an offering. We have our offering baskets here, on the QR codes. Next week, starting at 11:30, Khenpo Karze, our resident Khenpo, will be teaching again here at 11:30, the same time, starting back up the teachings. And again, just to mention something Atira mentioned in her teaching about KBC Buddhist Relief. If you'd like to find out more about KBC Buddhist Relief, we have some information in the front hallway. Also visiting the website, kbcbuddhistrelief.org. Again, this is a beautiful blessing that Dharma has given us, this opportunity, incredible opportunity to practice generosity and to feed people in need and to reach out to our community. So please consider giving either your time through volunteering or helping donate to the cause. So, and we hope that for the rest of the day you spend time here at the temple. You're always welcome here to visit the gardens, the animals, the stupas, everything, all the beautiful koi ponds, everything Jetsma has here to offer. And we do hope that you also join us at the drum circle, which is happening now over across the street at the Guru Rinpoche statue, and we will be singing mantras to call forth the rain to come where it needs to go or to stop where it should stop. So please join us, and if you don't have a musical instrument, that's fine. We have extra for you. So we hope that you stick around for today and enjoy the temple here. So thank you so much.